Chapter 7, The Secret They Couldn't Keep. The office was quieter than usual that Tuesday morning. Fluorescent lights hummed above, and the clack of keyboards carried across the open floor like rain on tin. Jacob leaned back in his chair, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. He had deadlines to meet, reports to edit, numbers to reconcile, but his eyes drifted toward the far end of the office. That's where Emma sat, frozen in front of her screen. She was noticeable, you know. Emma was always the kind coworker who filled every room with a ripple of brightness. She carried herself with ease and confidence, the sort of person who made jokes in his meetings and brought in muffins just because, even though the office always had breakfast and lunch catered. But lately, Jacob had noticed something that was dimming in her. Her laughter had thinned off. She jumped at the phone vibrations, and this morning, well, she hadn't just so much as touched the office steaming coffee on her desk. Jacob slid out of his chair and crossed the office. He didn't announce himself, just leaned against the partition until Emma glanced up, kind of startled. "You look like you're running a marathon of sprints without leaving your chair," Jacob said softly. Emma tried to laugh, but the sound cracked. "Just tired." You've been tired for weeks, I've noticed," Jacob said. He let the silence linger, giving her space. Eventually she sighed. Actually, do you mind if we talk somewhere else?" she asked. They stepped out into the crisp air of the parking lot, where autumn leaves skittered against the pavement. Emma folded her arms, hugging herself against the breeze that carried more weight than chill. "You know I've been seeing Michael, right?" she said as she fixed her eyes on the ground. "I don't know if you remember, I brought him to the Christmas party." Yeah," Jacob said. Emma said, "Well, we're not doing that good. I actually haven't been doing good for a long time, but I can't seem to get him out of my mind." Jacob nodded, letting her words kind of find their shape. "He's controlling, huh? Well, how would you know that?" she asked. Jacob said, "Well, I kind of saw and paid attention at the Christmas party to you guys. You can kind of tell a lot about couples in a social setting like that." "Well, yeah," she said. "He calls me like 20 times a day. Shows up at the office sometimes, and if I don't answer his calls, he makes me feel guilty, like I'm the reason everything's going wrong. I keep telling myself I'll change, but..." She kind of trailed off. Jacob didn't rush in to fill the space or the silence. He remembered his own wreckage, how endings never came clean, how sometimes you clung because it felt safer than leaping. "Emma," he said finally, "that's not love. That's crazy. That's a cage. That's prison. Love isn't confiding or taking over everything about your entire life. You're at work, for goodness sakes. You can respond to a call or a text. So what if you miss one or two?" Her eyes filled with teardrops, but no tear came out of the tear duct. She looked away. "I know, but I don't know how to tell him. Like, it's over. Like, what do I do? He's so, I don't know." Jacob interjected, "Manipulative?" "Yeah," she said. "He has this way of pulling me back in, and I've kept it all in, all bottled. My friends don't know, and my family doesn't even know. It's just been a secret. Like, you're the first person I've literally told, because everyone seems to like him." Jacob's chest kind of tightened. Secrets like this festered, poisoning slowly. He thought of the many people who had come to him for advice, whispering the things that you just couldn't tell anyone else. Maybe this was it, because he was a stranger. Well, not always a stranger, but just a stranger to their love. Someone who had no impact in it, you know? Not like a mom who wants you to get married or a brother who gets along with the guy that you're dating. Maybe this was his strange role in life, to be the quiet witness of people's lives when it went wrong, and to usher them with advice, and whether they take it or not was based on whether they wanted to be together with that person or not. The one who guided others towards endings they couldn't carve out alone. Well, then keep it a secret anymore, Jacob said. That evening, they met at a small diner down the street, a place with cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox that still took quarters. Emma looked exhausted, but lighter somehow, as if saying the words aloud had loosened chairs with chains. Jacob ordered coffee for both of them, black and hot. They sat across from each other, the hum of conversation around them foaming like a cocoon. So, what do I do? Emma asked. How do you tell someone who won't hear no that it's over? Jacob leaned forward. You don't have to ask for permission. You just make the decision. You set your boundaries and you don't go alone at it. If you want, I can be there. Emma blinked surprised. You do that for me? Jacob looked at her. Of course. We're colleagues. No one in this world should have to face the end of something alone. She pressed her lips together, then nodded. Okay, tomorrow. I'll tell him tomorrow. Tomorrow came faster than either of them had expected. Emma asked Michael to meet her at a quiet bar after work. She chose a public space, not private. That was Jacob's suggestion. And he insisted on being nearby. What could Michael do? He wasn't going to do anything awful. It's public. Plus, if he dared and he was really a psychopath, Jacob would be right there. Jacob sat in a corner booth, nursing a drink, pretending to check his phone, head down. From there, he could at least see Emma but not be seen at a table nearby at the window. Michael arrived, late, storming in with restless energy of a man who believed he owned the air around him. Jacob watched carefully as Emma squared her shoulders and spoke. At first, Michael laughed, shaking his head as if she were joking. Then his voice sharpened. Jacob couldn't hear the words, but he could read the anger in his gestures, the part in your forehead, right above your nose, those lines. And he could see his gestures, the way his hands sliced the air. Emma didn't flinch. She just looked straight at him, firm and unwavering. Finally, Michael shoved his chair back and stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the glass rattled and every patron that was around looked at the door. Emma sat very still, breathing, her chest up and down, breathing hard. Jacob got up and slid from his side out and into the booth. You okay? He asked gently. She let out a long, shaky breath. I did it. It's over. You did more than that, Jacob said. You told the truth. You set yourself free. Her eyes brimmed not with grief, but with relief. She laughed softly, almost in disbelief. I feel kind of lighter. A week later, the office buzzed with its usual hum. Emma was brighter again, her laughter back, her eyes clearer. She still had moments, checking her phone with hesitation, jolting with her shadow past the window, but the healing was well underway. One afternoon, as Jacob packed his bag to leave, he heard a faint music drifting from Emma's desk. George Jones, the mournful baritone, filling the air with, he stopped loving her today. Jacob raised an eyebrow. That's a heavy choice for the middle of the workday, he said. Emma smiled faintly. My dad used to play it on vinyl. Said it was the saddest song ever written. I never really understood it until now. It's about a man who just couldn't let go. He couldn't stop loving, even when it destroyed him. Jacob looked at her as he listened. The song spinning in his head spun the memory. The mournful strings filling the space between words. He thought of all the people who had mistaken endurance for devotion, who stayed crumbling under the pain like a house of cards because leaving felt like failure. Love isn't punishment you serve, Jacob said. It isn't a death sentence you cling to because you once made a promise. Real love doesn't shrink. Doesn't take the air from your lungs. Emma nodded slowly, her gaze far away. I wanted to believe Michael would change, that if I gave enough, endured enough, he'd soften. But hearing that song just now, I realized the only thing he wanted was my silence. He wanted me trapped in a forever that wasn't even love. She paused, brushing away a tear before it could fall. This time, the tear duct couldn't be any solution at all. I think I kept the secret because I was ashamed I was choosing the wrong thing, ashamed that I knew it was wrong, ashamed I wasn't strong enough to walk away. Not sooner, not by myself. Jacob looked at her. There's no shame in being human. We've all been there. We all fall into stories we don't belong to. What makes it finding the courage to step out, and that's it. This is your new story. For a while, they sat in a quiet, with the lyrics trailing through the speakers like a benediction. He stopped loving her today. They placed a wreath upon his door. Funny thing, Jacob said. People said the saddest song ever written. But I always thought about it as also about freedom, therefore the best song. He only let go in death, but you, think about that. You let go and you have life. You're way braver than him. And it's a classic. Emma smiled, faint but real. Maybe I needed to hear it today, to know the story doesn't have to end that way. In the weeks that ensued, Emma became more open with friends and with family. The secret she couldn't keep had spilled into the light, and instead of rejection, she found support. Go figure, Jacob had said when he told her. Her mother drove down for weekends. She was surprised. Jacob wasn't. Old college friends with her family adjacent reappeared with dinners and laughter. She had broken out of the cage. She was out of the shadows that she had lingered in and no longer held her a captive. One Friday evening after a long work week, Jacob and Emma found themselves in the same diner where she had first confessed. The jukebox was playing again, not mournful this time, but upbeat, a song about beginnings instead of endings. Emma stirred her drink, very thoughtful. And she said, I keep wondering if Michael will try to come back. If he'll call or show up, and part of me is afraid I'll weaken. Jacob shook his head. That's the echo of your prison. You know, it's kind of like reliving trauma. I'm just saying, you're stronger than that echo. You ain't got to put yourself back into that pain. And if you do, well, it's going to be hard the next time to get out of the shadows. Just don't doubt yourself. Remind yourself why you said no. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. All right, I could do that. The waitress passed by, dropping the bill, and Emma slipped a few coins into the jukebox slot. A moment later, the familiar swell of "he stopped loving her today" filled the diner again. Jacob glanced at her, puzzled. Emma just smiled. Sometimes you need to play a sad song to remember you lived through it, that you own the pain. You know, pain, joy. Really, they live side by side. It was as if she was leaving flowers at a grave. She was honoring it, you know, paying reverence, but just enough so she could move on. Jacob let the words settle. He realized she wasn't playing the song out of grief anymore, but out of victory. She was alive, free, and able to listen without breaking. When Jacob walked home that night, see the lights flickering against the pavement, he thought about the strange role he kept finding himself in. Friends, strangers, co-workers, it didn't matter who. People seemed to bring their endings as if he were the keeper of their last chapters of love. Well, what they thought was love. He wondered if it was his purpose not to tell people anymore about what to do, but how to do it. But maybe his purpose was, if they took their advice, that wasn't who they were supposed to be with. Recognizing that that wasn't love at all. The secret Emma carried alone was now open to all. and when it was gone, she was lighter, freer, and more herself. Jacob knew she had stumbled sometimes, as anyone does during the healing process, but she wouldn't be alone anymore. And as for him, he tucked away another story into the growing library of endings he had witnessed. Not that he had helped, he had witnessed. Being there, in a foxhole, like in a war. Each one was different, and each one left him with the same lesson. Saying no is sometimes the bravest act of love a person could give themselves and the other. He stopped at a crosswalk, the faint hum of radio drifting from a passing car. Once again, go figure, Charles Jones sang his refrain. Jacob smiled to himself. That damn song. Sad as it is. But for Emma, for them, it becomes something else. A mantra, a maker, a reminder that secrets lose their power when spoken, and that love, the real kind, was never meant to be kept in the shadows. It shines bright like the sun. Jacob crossed the street, his steps steady, the words echoing in his mind. He stopped loving her today. But Emma had started loving herself, yet again. And that was a secret worth telling the world.